I saw your dad out there.
My dad was right next to me while we were making out.
Dad, how'd you like the blue scene?
He knew.
So Ryan, Breckin, what's it like seeing your younger selves up there on the screen in tight shorts?
I had so much hair, and I'm not balding, but
I don't know, it was kind of...
You were like a sexy Harpo Marx.
I don't know about Breckin, but it's been so long since I saw any version of it, and especially up on a screen, and the energy in here tonight, and you guys, your reaction is so fun. It's really so fun, really gratifying.
That's awesome. Hey Mark, so this has been a crazy journey for you. How's it feel being here?
First of all, the San Francisco audience does not disappoint. Let's just say you're not German. But it was really wonderful.
Unless you want us to be.
It's been a crazy journey. I mean, I must say there was, at one point, we showed this movie on the beach. We had our Latin American premiere down in Guadalajara and in Puerto Vallarta. And they showed the movie on the beach, and at the point where Ryan's character is watching the woman up on the stage do Thunder and Lightning, The Way I Love You is Frightening, the waves came crashing in. So there's been a lot of magic during this journey, and tonight was part of it.
Love serendipity. Breckin, when you knew this was happening and the film was actually going to be coming out again, what was your thought? Did you were a little nervous, a little happy?
No, I was excited. When Ryan and I were talking about it, we were both really excited. It's the movie we made. You know what I mean? It's the movie 17 years ago that we made, and it was at the time, just signing on to this movie. Ryan is still my best friend, and my first on-screen kiss is with Ryan. He bust the shit out of my cherry. It was pre-road trip and pre-things like that, so it was Garfield. Do it all the time.
There's an after party.
We were both really excited to see Mark's vision, what it always was, what we signed to do, what we shot. We were both excited.
I remember when I called Breckin up, and I'm like, yeah, man, I'm going in to re-record some voiceover for 54. I think I was fucking with
I was like, you're drunk.
Because this is an unprecedented thing, and what I do want to say is, in admiration of Mark as a filmmaker and his tireless efforts to kind of get this version, get the right version out there for people to see. I admire that as an artistic person. This is such a rare thing to have happen 17 years after a film's release, for a director to finally get their cut, and I just would like to applaud Mark for that.
Was part of the village as well. Thank you for supporting it.
It's usually like we all know DVDs and stuff. You get the director's cut, and oh my god, there's 3 minutes. That's awesome. And here it's like, oh, it's a totally different film. 30 minutes. Yeah, it's totally different. I mean, yeah, everything about it is.
The experience I had tonight in watching this version, the right version, was this version you felt like you were inside the club, and the last one you felt like you were still outside the ropes. That's kind of what it seemed like to me. Yeah.
By the way, your performance is really spectacular.
Thank you.
For those who saw the other version in 1998, though, did you see Breckin's new character?
Yes!
It's an entirely different story, right? Yeah. And then this, yes.
It's really, really cool. I think we should start taking some questions from the audience. If people want to put on the lights. Well, yeah, go ahead. I'll repeat them.
How did you? I want to say though, just
go ahead.
to compliment what you emailed or spoke to Breckin about. You've lost your mind. That movie was made 17 years ago. When I first emailed Salma, I said, "Hey, the movie's coming out," and she said, "Mark, I hate to tell you, but that movie came out 17 years ago. You've lost your mind." So I think she thought I was some bananas person, and then when she found out this was happening, she said, "I know how to sing now. I can re-record myself." Nancy Valley, Yes, had I known that Nancy Valley would have let me do that, I would have done that. But she did let me do Ryan's re-recording, so that was awesome.
Awesome.
Saul McKenzie.
I'm going to take you first there. Ma'am?
Can you explain the distributor-mandated 15 minutes of footage? 30 minutes?
Well, the 30 minutes of reshoots versus the 45 minutes of the original material?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it really was, you know, it was a different time. This was a very large release, and because the cast was getting, you know, kind of blowing up, and they decided to release a huge sort of movie. I think the movie was a little bit ahead of its time. It had a very, very flawed and sexy lead character, which is very acceptable now, but wasn't at the time, so...
Yeah, I think it was a reaction to an early test screening and ultimately a business decision of sorts that, you know, whether we agreed with it or not as the people who made the film, that's what was done, and now they gave us a chance to open it back up and sort of rectify that to some degree.
And celebrate it tonight, so that's what this is.
Woo! Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
Where did you... thanks. So how did you actually find all of the outtakes to put it back together again? How and where?
First of all, Nancy Valley, stand up. A round of applause.
Princess of Meyer.
Okay, shall I tell the tale of the grapevine? Okay, so there, I don't. It was incredibly difficult, but David Kittredge, stand up, also the editor. Go into it by bit, but some of the stuff we couldn't find, and since I'm a hack rat, and I hoped one day that maybe this movie would come out, I did store it under my friend Jim Fall's house, and so there are certain shots that I'm sure you saw that look very 70s, and that's where those are from. But Miramax kept all their negative, they kept all their footage. Thank the Lord, they kept their VHS dailies, which no one normally would do. If they had not kept the VHS dailies, there would be no movie here. So that was an absolutely amazing thing. And we were able to recreate the movie from that, because there really never was a director's cut. So, cool. I know that's a roundabout way of answering you, but I hope I did.
That's great.
Hi. Hi. Actually bartended there for 3 of the 4 years that it was open.
Wow.
70s or 80s?
70s.
Woo! That's a real deal.
77 through 1980. And then I knew the first time I saw it, it really kind of captured, it seemed like you were privy to something that other people weren't, so I sort of believed it the first time I did it. And it's real unusual that in that subject that was talking about the workers, because it really wasn't about the workers when it was open, so I really like that angle. But my question is, how come the soundtrack is great? How come you didn't get I Will Survive? That was the anthem for that.
Because that became a car commercial. And it had a whole different feeling. So one thing that I really want to do in this movie is sort of rediscover songs that we all loved, but were kind of hits, like Love It Is Really My Game. So that was never really big. That's when Ryan becomes, famous. That was never really a big disco hit, but had a bigger life after the soundtrack was released for '54. So we were looking for stuff that wasn't overused, like Who Doesn't Love I Will Survive, but it already had taken on other lives of its own, and so it was very important for the music to drive the movie, to reflect the characters, to have that sort of Saturday Night Fever feel to it, where it's part of the story. The music is a character in the movie.
Awesome.
And I made these poor boys listen to it before every take.
Go on in the back.
I was just curious, you had a lot of footage from back then. If you could go back in time and say, oh my god, I have to film this one scene that I forgot to film, because someday I'm going to make a director's cut and I wish I filmed it, what would that scene be?
Well, some of it's lost out there somewhere. It was filmed. No, Sama doing her scene in Spanish. ¿Por qué no?
Actually, it's funny. Are there any scenes that you guys saw tonight that you were like, oh, that was so good. I love doing that. Or like,
I was really struck by Mike's performance in this cut too. I thought it was really, really nice. And Disco Dottie, Disco Dottie is so, she's the shit. I don't know, man, you know, like, when I thought back watching it tonight too was the atmosphere too that was created by Mark while we were shooting it. Like, we felt like we were kind of living in that club and at that time, and I think that lends itself to what you actually get to watch, you know.
Can I say what, you know, I just have to say this because I kept a journal at the time, and Breckin, I don't know if you remember that you would do this, but he would, before a take, not always, but he'd say, great, great dancer, great, great dancer, great, great dancer. I love my wife, I love my wife, I love my wife. Anita would do such terrible things to him.
Yeah, it was tough to stay in love when she was banging my buddy. It was so great. We would get to, but that is a different time. We would get to set, and we were filming one point, we were in Toronto in winter, and I go into my trailer, and there's a Italian horn and satin running shorts on a hanger, and that's it. And there's snow outside, and you know, spoiler alert, I'm not Italian. And so we would do this body makeup, which was before spray tanning and stuff, so it was just a sponge and a bucket of brown. Just put it on, afterwards you do this kind of rapey Silkwood shower when you get home. Your sheets look like you had sex with a gingerbread man. I will say, honestly, Phil's and I talk about it all the time, it was so much fun. It really was. I mean, Mark created this environment. Once you were in those doors, you were in the club. It smelled like a club. It felt like a club. We're seeing things. When Salma was dancing with that guy, I didn't date Salma, and I was watching. I remember thinking, while I'm off camera, just about to go in, I'm like, I fucking like this guy. It's going, and I can't do that. And he's better than me, you know.
And it wasn't just his wig, right?
No, it wasn't just his awesome Chia wig. It was like.
Also, Breckin, I know you were a victim of this. I don't know if Ryan, you were hit by this, but you know the beautiful glitter that falls on New Year's Eve? It really fucking hurt.
Really? It was just like glass raining on you. It didn't touch Ryan because he's shade 54, but it was cascading umbrella of glass.
Breckin and I were red for 3 weeks afterwards. It was scary. Ryan was fine.
That's awesome. Put one up front here. Do one in the back there. Just go ahead.
Can I just say one thing? Disco Dottie is 101 years old. Round of applause.
Is this microphone on?
Yep.
Thank you very much for your wonderful film. I did not see the first one, and I want to stand up and represent the part of the audience who is not in on the joke, if you will. Like, we saw what it was, we don't like it, and let's not talk about what it was. And look how great the new one is. And yes, the new one is great, but what was so bad about the old one? Can you give us some like, plot, just, can you fill us in? Thank you.
Well, we made that film as well, so it's sort of like what I will say is this: we called that film 55.
It's like a bad trick versus a good trick. You're still having sex, right?
There's some articles out there you can probably find if you Google.
They reference that on this thing called Google that was invented here.
You guys had so much fun filming this movie. If you could do it all over again, what would you do again?
If you could do it all over again, what would you do?
Selma Hayek is not.
I think we would all not get colds because you know what? I was dying when we shot all the scenes at your and Anita's house. I was about dead there. Ryan was dying on that last scene, and it was 20 degrees, and the sun was about to come up, and we had to get that last take in one shot. He was dying of a cold. Trooper, he did it. And Breckin, do you remember when your cold was? It was during the scene with Mike and the money. And I thought, I've read the Sidney Lumet book. perhaps my actor being sick is a good thing. And it really did lower his defenses, and he does such a beautiful job in that scene. And he was definitely
Amazing.
Ryan, what is yours? What would you do?
So we got one. Sorry. Ryan, go ahead.
I don't look back, man.
Go one on the back.
At the screening for a movie 17 years ago.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I have a question. So I really enjoyed the viewing experience, and I wanted to know which parts of the film were your favorites to either watch or create.
I think we can all agree the Christmas Eve scene in the basement.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, that was a close set. It was very special. As I said, I cast Breckin first, and he kept saying, I got this friend, Ryan Phillipe, I got this friend. And I said, yeah, I saw him, man. He's perfect, he's great, but he's really young. And then he came back a year later, and we cast him immediately. So this whole, this wonderful thing that these two guys have been best friends all these years, and were best friends then, made shooting that scene, I think, really special. For me, you know, for no other reason.
We did when we shot the kissing scene. The big thing was we didn't do it until on film. We never rehearsed it. I mean, we rehearsed the scene, but we never did the kiss. You know, and this was the first time I ever got razor burn from someone else. But it was really, honestly, it was one of these things where that was one of the reasons I loved this character. I was like that, and especially at that time, you didn't see that. You didn't see that a lot in this film with this character, and it was so interesting. And then when Phil said I'm going to do it, it was like so exciting. So honestly, the one thing when that part was not in the 55, that was the one thing I was like, God, that really informs those characters. That's who they are. That's what their friendship is. That's yeah, that's really all I have to say. But.
And also, to those guys, it was no big deal, which was they're the first generation of this is no big deal. And that also made it.
Last one, I think. Good one?
Right. Yeah. Seriously, it's going to be really good. But like on a scale of 1 to 10, how many?
It's like a 9 out of 10.
Okay, give the mic away.
I was born in 1982.
It's not a question, that's about you.
Like a lot of us here, we were born after the era, right? So, if you were to remake the film, but not Studio 54, if a film were made today about a club or a bar, do you think you could remake this film about a current club